Alright everybody, welcome to the Beginner's Guide and Gameplay Showcase of Mechabellum, a very unique and very interesting game that I picked up a couple months ago, and I definitely wanted to make a video on it because this is a very chill and laid back game. You don't need any kind of APM or actions per minute for it. It's not that kind of a game. It's more like a turn-based strategy with a lot of unique elements to it, which I don't even want to go into describing just yet. I just want to jump into a game and show you guys some actual gameplay. So we're going to be playing against the AI. We're going to be doing several rounds so that we have some different situations going on, and for that we're going to be using the solo mode, and within that the practice mode, which is very handy because you can play against multiple levels of AI on multiple maps. We're just going to be using the railway town and this base HP. I'll get into this once we are actually in the game. So let's just load up a game of against the easy AI. So this video is going to be similar to the previous two beginners guides that I made. The goal is for you guys to understand the basics of this game at the end of this video and have a general idea of whether you want to pick this game up or not. Okay, now welcome to Mechabellum. This is how every game starts, whether you're playing against the AI or playing multiplayer against someone else. You have a selection of 4 commanders. Now what does a commander do? Well, it has an initial HP, which you can see up here, and this is relative to the base HP that we saw in the practice screen a couple of seconds ago, which was 4500, and this is based on that. So for example, this third commander has the exact base HP, but the other ones, like for example this first one, is a more tankier commander that has 5300 HP. So this is a tankier guy, this is like the baseline, and this has a lot less HP, 4200. Now this will come in handy understanding what the HP is at the end of each round. I will return to that in a moment once we get to the round at all. But let's stick with the commanders first. So you have their initial HP. You also have a specialization for each, which you can find here in the form of a text, which at this point it won't make any sense to you because this is a beginner's guide, so I assume that you guys are beginners, complete beginners to Mechabellum. So this doesn't make any sense. No worry. Don't worry about that at all. And you also have 2 starting units that each commander has, which will also not tell you much, that this is the crawler and this is the Mustang. Okay, so I'm just going to pick one. This is going to be the first one. And we are thrown into the game. Now, like I said, this is not an RTS game of any sort. This is, well, it isn't. It is a turn-based game in the sense that you deploy your units, which are here. These are the base units that you got, which were listed under the commander. And your opponent, having picked their commander, also has a selection of starting units, which are these ones. Now, what the gameplay flow is, essentially, is that you take these groups of units and you place them on your side of the map. So as you can see, the map is essentially divided into 2. This is our opponent's side, and this is our side. And we can place units on our side or the flank of our opponents, which will unlock in the next round, which will be this area and then this area to the right, which allows you to do some very nice advanced tactics. But for now, we're just going to be focusing on our side of the map. So you left-click a group of units to select them. That will reveal them in the bottom left with some basic stats, their name, their level, which is 1, the XP required for them to level up, the category essentially, so this is a light melee robot, and also some upgrades, because each unit type can be upgraded individually with a selection of 4 upgrades, which are these ones. And this goes for every single unit. So for example, here's the Mustang that I mentioned earlier. This is a high-speed all-purpose tank with its selection of upgrades. Okay, you can also find, this is very important, what can they attack. So for example, the Mustang can attack air and ground, while the crawler can only attack ground, as you can see, which can be awkward. If you have a bunch of units that can only attack ground and suddenly the enemy has air units, then you are bound to lose that round. But what does it mean to actually lose a round? Well, once we have placed all of our units and ended the deployment by clicking this big ass button here in the top center of the screen, both teams or both players as units will essentially go at each other. Kind of think about this as if you were playing an RTS game and you attack moved into the enemy and the enemy attack moved into you. But there's no micromanagement involved, so you're not like going back a little bit and then attacking again. No, you're just selecting all of your units and you are just attack moving into the enemy, and the enemy does the same. That is essentially the combat phase of Mechabellum, which we'll see in just a second. Okay. Now, after the end of that round, it's bound to happen that one of the players will still have some units standing. Each unit standing will then damage the commander of the opponent. Now, the amount of damage that each unit deals to the opponent's commander is solely based on what type of unit it is. If it's a smaller unit that usually comes in big groups, like the crawler, then each individual unit will probably deal only a handful of damage, like 17 damage, for example. But if the enemy's saber-tooth tank, which is this big-ass, very heavy tank, were to be kept alive at the end of the round, then this will probably deal several hundred damage to my commander, which you can see in the bottom left, or the top left, and the opponent is in the top right. And the goal is to reduce the commander's health to 0 or below, essentially. And you do that once again by essentially having your units alive at the end of each round. Okay? So you'll see that in a second, once I start this round, the round ends, and you'll see some kind of like energy spheres flying to either me or the opponent, depending on which one of us is alive at the end of the round. Okay? Now in the bottom right is where you can train units or deploy units, as it's called in this game, and also your supplies. Each unit and upgrades in the future and deployable stuff, which I'm not going to get into just yet, will cost you supply. Now this is our starting supply of 250. There can be other commanders that start with more supply, or I think there's even commanders that actually start with less supply than 250. Whatever, this is our supply, 250, and we can use this essentially for, like I said, upgrades, unit deployment, and skills or abilities. Now what I'm going to do is here I have these two base units unlocked, the Mustang and the Crawler. I can also unlock more units by hitting this plus button. And by hovering over, I'm actually told what it costs to unlock that unit. So for example, this is the Fang Light All-Purpose Bot, costs 0 credits to unlock, which is displayed in the card over here. Not the cost up top, that would be actually to deploy the unit, but just to unlock the unit costs 0 in case of the Fang. But if I go down to, let's say this guy, the Abyss, which I think is one of the new units, Flying Titan, just to unlock this would cost 200 supplies. I could do it right now, but then I would have to spend 800 maybe in the next round to actually deploy it, which is the cost that you can see in the card up top. Okay, so this is how you can unlock units. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is really unit countering the video game. So that is why it's kind of difficult to showcase what counters what. It's more like you just have to play the game a lot of times to actually understand which units counter which other units. So I'm not going to go into that, but I am going to go into this basic idea of this is how you unlock units, and then you deploy them by simply clicking the unit card in the bottom right. So for example, I could either go with 2 crawlers, which will cost me 200 supplies if I go with 2 groups of crawlers, or I can go with 1 group of Mustang. I'm just going to go with a Mustang just to show you. I'm going to click it, and then I've lost that 200 supplies, but a group of Mustangs have been dropped here in the middle, and now I'm down to 50 supply. Okay, and that means I cannot deploy anything else. Now above the unit cards is the squad count. That is the amount of squads or groups that you can deploy per round. So because I deployed a group of Mustangs, this reduced from 2 to 1. And if I were to deploy something else, provided I had the supply to do so, this would be 0. So that means even if I had the supply, I wouldn't be able to deploy more units onto the field. Now this can be increased temporarily, which we'll get to in later. Just keep in mind that you can normally, in normal circumstances, deploy 2 squads of units. Okay, now, so we have our units. I'm just going to take these guys. And once again, I'm just going to left click to select them, which will display their information in the bottom left. And then left click again to start moving that unit group. Now here's the catch. You can only deploy these guys once throughout the entire game. So that means if I take this group of Mustang, place them over here, next to this building, which I haven't covered yet, these units will appear and start from this location throughout the entirety of the game. Not just this one round, the entire game. And this is a very interesting aspect of Mechabellum, is that you have to think this much ahead. Like, is this position for the Mustang going to be good throughout the entirety of the game? Now, of course, that's also dependent on our opponent, because our opponent will, after I end the deployment, will immediately see that this group of units have been placed in this location and starts from this spot. So that means they are likely to put some counter units somewhere which can intercept our Mustangs. And that means in the next round, we probably need to play against their countering of our Mustangs and so on and so forth. And this goes into a very interesting back and forth in you countering what the opponent has countered your units and so on and so forth. Very interesting, as I mentioned. Okay, so just keep in mind that once you have placed these guys down, they're going to be there for the remainder of the game. There are a few exceptions to this, unique upgrades, for example, and what are called reinforcements, which we'll see in the end of the round. They can actually allow you to redeploy units, so move them away from their starting position. But the general idea is that they will start from this exact spot throughout the entire game. Okay, so I'm just going to place these guys in certain positions. Like, for example, over here. I'm not going to go into counters just yet. Once again, I'm just going to place these guys down somehow so that we can end the deployment and start a round. Okay, so let's say I'm happy with this. We'll see if I'm happy about it at the end of the round. And I'm just going to click End Deployment. This will start the combat phase, which is the auto-attacking phase I mentioned earlier. And in the end, you'll see some of these energy spheres fly through to either me or my opponent, depending on which one of us is still alive at that point, and we can damage each other. Okay, so just keep in mind that that will happen in the end, and let's start the combat. So at this point, I have no control over my units. I have the selection box, but it doesn't do anything, right? I cannot select them, I cannot tell them to immediately attack the big ass tank over here. I cannot do anything. They're just simply auto attacking to the closest enemy that they can find. We also have some camera options in the top right. You have automatic camera, which is like the cinematic epic vision of the battleground. You also have an aerial camera, which will allow you to manually essentially cover the battlefield as such. And now that we have won, you can see those little bubbles or energies hitting the opponent's commander. It's very difficult to spot in the beginning, especially if you're not paying attention to that just yet. But essentially, each unit that we had alive has damaged the enemy commander, and now they're down to this amount of HP. And once again, the goal is to reduce that to 0 or below. Now that the round is over, you get a selection of reinforcements. These can be a lot of different things. For example, in this case, it's kind of a bad example because we only have units, but you can have upgrades, you can have one-time abilities, you can have abilities that have a certain cooldown. So for example, every 3 rounds, you can deploy a unit behind the enemy lines. That's just one example. Or you can have upgrades like attach a module to one of your units that will increase their HP by 200%, and that's a permanent upgrade. So you have a large variety of these reinforcements. However, it's important to mention that each of these reinforcements are the same for both players. So I see these 4 reinforcements. My opponent also has these 4 reinforcements. So this is an element of, essentially not an element of surprise, it's quite the opposite, that you can kind of predict what your opponent might be going for. So for example, if there was an obvious situation that, for example, your opponent doesn't have any aerial units, they'll probably go for the Phoenix. Or if they need some long-range units, then they will probably go for the Marksman, or they will just go for the Marksman in general because it's a level 3 unit, which is their rankings in the top left-hand side. But the point is, to keep in mind is that these are always going to be same for both players at the end of each round. Okay, so I see these, my opponent also see these. I don't know what they're going to pick until they actually picked it, and even then in some cases you won't necessarily know if it's that kind of an ability, but you can probably predict after a couple of games what's going to happen. Okay, so in this case, it doesn't matter, this is just a demonstration game. I'm going to go with the Void Eyes, immediately obtain 2 squads of rank 1 Void Eye. Now this we can understand at this point, so 2 squads, so essentially 2 groups of Void Eye units, and we will immediately obtain it, and this is free to pick up. Now there are reinforcements that actually cost supply, so for example this would cost 100 supply just to get this reinforcement. Albeit for that 100 supply, you will actually grab a Farseer. But some of these are free, and some of these will actually cost supplies, and then later in the game you will get crazier ones which will cost a ton of supply in the future. So I'm just going to go with the Void Eyes, whatever, and as you can see here, I have my 2 squads of Void Eyes. Now, as I mentioned before, units you have placed down will be there for the remainder of the game, and that is very true because now even if I click them, I get this error message, kind of blends into the screen, but you can probably read it over here, is that only newly recruited units can be moved. So I can no longer move these units. I can move the units that are in green because those are newly deployed units that have been deployed this round, but I cannot move the ones that I've deployed in the previous round. And nor can my opponent. So now I actually know what their formation is. Previously, I just knew what their starting units was, because that's what I saw in the center of their map, or their half map. But now I can actually see that this is the formation they went with. So now I can actually start thinking about how I'm going to counter this. Now, since we won the previous round, I don't necessarily need to counter anything. But provided that we lost it for whatever reason, then I would probably go for taking out the Sabertooth somehow by getting units that are very good against heavy units, because this is just one unit, but it's a heavy tank, so you need the firepower to actually take it out. Now, if this was a human player, they will also start thinking about how can they counter this formation by having a bunch of crawlers here in the next to this building, and also some Mustangs, lots of DPS coming from these, and essentially this is the gameplay flow. So I'm going to place some Void Eyes. Also, I'm going to stick to this symmetrical setup. Now, these Void Eyes actually came out in the recent 1.5.0 patch. I never actually used them before, so it's kind of awkward, but we're going to see what they can do. Okay, now just to move things a little bit forward. So far we have seen how to deploy units, but we haven't really covered what these 2 buildings are. Now, both of these buildings provide upgrades of some sort. The research center, which is this one, and also your opponent has the same 2 buildings, by the way. These are called core buildings. Now, if each core building gets destroyed, this is what will happen. So destruction of the core building will cause our forces to be paralyzed for 9 seconds. In the paralyzed state, the unit's movement speed is reduced by 80%, attack is reduced by 90%, and it takes an additional 50% damage when attacked. So essentially, if the enemy were to destroy this building or the other one, because this has the same effect if it gets destroyed, our forces will be paralyzed for 9 seconds, and if you read that tooltip, that means for that 9 seconds our units will be useless, because 90% reduced attack and 80% reduced movement speed is horrible, actually. So that is why I've initially placed all of my units next to the core buildings, and so did the enemy, by the way, even on easy. And this is probably what you want to do, is focus on defending your core buildings, because if either of these gets destroyed, then only for the remainder of that 9 seconds though, but your units will be in a very bad state. Okay, now outside of this, each core building can be upgraded. So each have a fortification upgrade, which you can buy for 100 supplies. Fortifies this core building, increases its HP by 20,000, and shortens the paralyzed state caused by its destruction by 2 seconds. So it will go down from 9 seconds to 7 seconds of being paralyzed. Now you can go with these upgrades, or they also have some additional upgrades that you can pick up. The research center has more permanent upgrades, like for example attack enhancements, increases the attack of all units by 12%, or defense enhancement, increases the HP of all units by 15%. Or you have some other kind of crazier upgrades that you can pick up with this. Allows the use of sticky oil bomb, so on and so forth. I don't want to confuse you with some of these, but the point is, each has their own set of upgrades. So for example, this one, rapid resupply, is a very interesting tactical choice because it costs nothing, but if you read it, immediately obtain 200 supplies. So remember our currency, which we have 450 of at the moment, and get 300 fewer supplies in the next round. So essentially this round we can do a big deployment by having 650 supplies, but in the next round, however many supplies we would have, we would need to subtract 300 from that, and that is the amount we would start out with. So it's, you get something this round, but you get screwed over in the next round. This can be super epic to actually pull off, if you can pull it off. Mass recruitment, another upgrade that you can grab. And by the way, the command center upgrades, so remember this down here is the research center, this one is the command center, are only valid for 1 round, and this goes for all of its upgrades. So the second one, mass recruiting, increases the number of units that can be purchased in this round by 1. So that means it will increase the squad count we have over here. Previously we have talked about this, that by default you can deploy 2 squads regardless of however many supplies you have. Well, I mean, if you have enough supplies, of course. But this will temporarily increase it by 1 by paying that 50 supply. So I will just click this just to demonstrate it. So I got this, and that means my squad count is now up to 3. So I can deploy up to 3 squads, provided that I have the supplies to actually do so. And if you do a little bit of math, then you can actually deploy 1 of each. Now we could have deployed maybe 3 crawlers for 300 and then 1 void eye squad as well. You don't have to deploy 1 of each. You can deploy however many you would like from one type. That is perfectly fine. Okay, and now these are also green because they have been newly deployed onto the field, and that means we can place them for this round. And once again, next round these will also no longer be green, which means they won't be able to be placed on the map. Okay, and there are some other set of upgrades that you can grab, which are also just going to be valid for this round. So for this round, increase the rank of units that can be purchased by 1. We've briefly touched on the rank of units, which is this. Each unit that gets a kill will earn them XP, and if they have enough XP, they can be upgraded, like this group over here, which has the little arrow sign, which is probably a good time to talk about promoting units. So each unit pack, or squads I should probably say, can be promoted once they reach the required experience. As you can see, 1100. They have reached the 1100 experience that they needed to actually be promoted. And I could have promoted this, provided that I had the 100 supply, but I spent it all on new units, so I cannot promote this unit. But if maybe next round we'll promote this just to show you guys, then this will become a level 2 Mustang for the remainder of the game. Okay? And what this upgrade essentially does is, if you grab this, then all the units that you can deploy in this round will actually be 1 level higher, or 1 rank higher than their base value. So for example, this is a level 1 Void Eye. This would become a level 2 Void Eye if deployed. Of course, that will also mean that these would be more expensive to actually put down on the field, because that is how it is if you get an upgrade that will promote these units by default. So you can go maybe with an upgrade that will allow you to deploy level 3 Mustangs right off the bat. You don't have to actually level them, you just put them down their level 3. Then this will no longer cost 200, it will cost a lot more than that. Okay, probably went a little bit too far with this promoting thing. Let's just focus on the basics first. I'm just going to put these units in other locations. Now at this point, it's probably a good idea to actually look at what our opponent has. And of course, they're going to have more units because they don't see what we are putting down and we cannot see what they're putting down. So they will probably have some more units all around the place. But I think if we stick to our symmetrical strategy, what kind of symmetrical strategy, then we're going to be in a good position. One more thing is, when you're deploying units, you can actually hit T, and that will switch the formation around from a horizontal fashion, like what we have right now, to a vertical fashion, so we can make even better boxes around our core buildings, like so. Okay, so I'm done with the deployment. Let's see what happens. Looks like we're doing good on both flanks. Up top, you can see that we have 100 seconds, now 97, 96, 95 seconds left of this round. If at the end of the round neither team actually wins, then what's going to happen is both teams will damage each other's commander. Now we have destroyed one of the core buildings, so that means these units are completely paralyzed, and as you can see, they're barely doing any damage at that point for that 9 seconds. Once again, we have won, and all of our live units have damaged the commander by somewhat. For a brief second there, you can see the damage numbers. So some of these smaller units actually only dealt 33 damage, which is, you know, can be nice if you have like 1,000 units on the field, but right now we don't have that much, so we're still just only, the enemy is still just down to 3,300 HP. Okay. Once again, end of a round, new set of reinforcements that we can pick up, and so will our opponent once again. So they will also have a selection of these. Now, these aren't units; these are actually abilities, and very good examples, by the way. So thank you, game, for actually this RNG. So this first one generates a barrier with 60,000 HP to protect nearby units. Can only be equipped by giant ground units. That is a special type of ground units. Those are the bigger units that you can unlock later on, and this can only be attached to one of it. And it costs 100 supplies to unlock. I'm not going to go over every single reinforcement, that would be boring. Just the general idea, once again, is both players have the same set of reinforcements. Some of them are free, some of them cost money, some of them are units, some of them are one-time appliances like this one, and some of them have cooldowns. For example, the electromagnetic impact, it has a cooldown of 2 rounds. So if I pick this up, let's just, I don't know, or increases the shield of energy shield devices by 40%. Now this is a general upgrade, which means you don't have to put this anywhere, you just have this in general for the remainder of the game, and it's free. Let's go with the portable shield, whatever. Because the portable shield is a castable ability, and all these castable abilities will show up in the left-hand side of the screen. And this one in particular, sorry, I just thought this was another. I mean, this actually is a castable ability, the intensive training, which you got with our commander. So that's why we have this. But just focus on this one. This is the portable shield that we actually picked up this time around. So I can just click this, and units equipped with this item obtain an energy shield that absorbs damage equal to the unit's HP and can block at least once. What? At least one instance of damage. So this is very nice. This is probably would be better used on larger units, so I'm going to keep on to this. But you would apply this by simply clicking it once and then dragging it onto an applicable unit. You know what, just to show you guys, I'm actually going to put this on these void eyes. It's probably not a good idea to do so, but whatever. I'm just going to show you guys that this is how it works, and now it's on the void eye. And only that void eye. So upgrades that you get through reinforcements, especially if it's one of these applied upgrades, they will only be attached to one squad and not a type of unit. So the other group of void eyes that we have don't actually have that reinforcement. Okay, so let's see this promotion, because now we have more promoted units that can be promoted because they got a lot of kills, so they got a lot of XP and they can be promoted. Now you can promote each one individually, or you have this button to upgrade all 3. So that means it's going to upgrade all units of this type for a total of 300. I'm just going to click this button, or it's Control U, by the way, and that will now upgrade all of our Mustangs that actually had enough experience to be promoted. And at this point, this Mustang is level 2, which means their stats have increased significantly. So this one, let's just choose one stat, like the HP, 343 on the level 1 Mustang, but the level 2 Mustangs have 686, so exactly twice as many HP. And same goes for the damage. It's actually 36 attack versus 72 attack, so it's actually worth promoting your units all the time, because you can get a lot of good stuff out of them. Okay, now we're down to 200 supplies. We could once again deploy units, but this time around I'm just going to go with the research center core building and buy the attack enhancement upgrade, which will permanently increase the attack of all of our units by 12%. Yeah, because the next tier is going to be 24%. I'm going to grab the defense enhancement upgrade. And now this applies to all of our units. You can even see the little icons on top of the buildings. And I believe you would also see it on top of the enemy's buildings, provided they actually got those upgrades. Okay, now since we're out of supplies, and I don't really wish to go with this rapid resupply upgrade from the command center, which will once again increase our supplies by 200, but we get 300 fewer next time around. I think we're in a good position to end this round over here. So once again, I'm going to end the deployment and see what happens. Okay, so the enemy is not really going for anti-swarm-ish units. So swarm units are usually the ones that come in a large group, but they're very weak, like the crawler, for example. They would probably want to go with a better counter to these swarm units, because that's what's actually dealing a lot of damage to them. Once in core building down, so the remaining 2 units that they had actually took a ton more damage and barely dealt anything. Okay, round number 4. New set of upgrades. As always, let's go with the Orbital Javelin, because why not? It's also a castable ability, but it's very good so that I can show you that there are also abilities that will deal damage. So this can be deployed anywhere on the map. It actually takes a couple of tries to actually see how long it takes for it to actually come down, because some of these abilities will actually come down fast, others will come down slower. So if you target them, for example, over here, then these units are bound to get out of position by the time this actually drops. And I'm just going to drop it somewhere over here, and maybe this won't even work, we'll see. But I just targeted it over there, and once the round starts, this Orbital Javelin will actually drop, dealing 70,000 damage to targets within the 30-meter radius, which is this. Outside of this, the gameplay flow is the same. One thing to note is that right-hand side, we now see that this barrier has been picked up by our opponent. So these castable abilities will actually show up below the commander card of our opponent. So as you can see, they picked up the barrier, which can be applied to the giant ground unit category, which, by the way, is this one. So this is, for example, a Titan mobile factory, giant mobile factory. So these are the giant units, giant aircraft as well, giant melee mech, giant anti-unit bot. So these are the giant units. Giant guard robot, these are the ones that can be applied. Okay, so what next? We haven't covered these abilities just yet. You have a selection of 3 abilities that you can cast at any time or put down at any time. You have the energy shield, generates an energy shield that absorbs 40,000 damage. It disappears permanently when destroyed. For example, let's just put this down over here, and this will form an energy shield for as long as it's alive. You also have the Sentry missile, which is a single-use Sentry missile that detonates near the enemy, dealing 5,000 damage and slowing enemy units for 14 seconds. You can only deploy these on your side of the map, but as you can see, this Sentry missile, for example, has a very big range. So as soon as something gets into it, even if it's just one weak unit, it will actually trigger and attack it. So in this case, it's definitely going to be this set of crawlers, which, by the way, have been upgraded to level 2 by our opponent. Now these are abilities that you can put down as much as you want. So I can just do this. I will put down some Sentry missiles for demonstrative purposes, and this might be enough Sentry missiles to actually take out every single one of their units. Well, actually, these are the amounts that you can deploy, which are shown by the devices over here. So these are called devices, and we have a limit to them. Similarly to how we have a limit to squads, which are units that you can deploy. Devices are basically things you can put down that are listed over here. Okay. Now we have another upgradable or promotable unit, another Mustang. Let's promote this guy, and we're down to 50 supply, which can't really do anything with them. So I'm just gonna end the deployment once again and see how our wall of Sentry missiles will actually do. Plus our, yeah, that just dropped, destroyed the tank, so that was kind of calculated perfectly. And now the Sentry missiles are also triggering onto the closest that got in range of them, and this should be an easy wipe as well. As you can see, the shield is still up. This absorbed damage, well, a little bit of damage that it took, but anything underneath it will not take any damage until the shield is up. And now the shield has been recharged, so it's kind of unlucky for our opponent. Okay, more upgrades. For example, advanced offensive tactics increase the attack of all units by 30%. So this is once again those kind of passive upgrades that you can pick up, which applies to all units, and you don't have to cast it anywhere. You just need to pay the 350 supply, which I'm actually going to do. And now all of our units have even more attack. Okay, now our crawlers can be upgraded. Once again, I'm going to use the upgrade all 4 button for 200 supply because we can afford it. Nice. Now we also have level 2 crawlers, and we can actually upgrade this set of Mustangs to be level 3. Now these are level 3 Mustangs. Each promotion, as you can see, has a different kind of cosmetic, which is nice because you can later see which ones are which. Go ahead and upgrade these guys or promote these guys. And by the way, this castable ability that we had from the commander is called intensive training. You can also pick this up from one of the reinforcements. I think we even had it after one of the rounds, which is instantly increases the XP of a designated squad to the maximum value. So by casting this on, we probably won't be able to afford it. But if I were to cast this on any of the squads, they would immediately be able to be promoted. Very interesting upgrade. And it also has a cooldown of 1 round, so we can... Actually, I just cast it. Now you need to be within range of the units that you actually want to cast it. So for example, let's say I want to cast it to this Mustang group. And now if I click it, I can promote this to a level 3 Mustang squad as well. Okay, and now the cooldown is 1 round, which is kind of crazy because then the next round we can do the same thing all over again. Okay, now our Sentry missiles have been used up, so they are no longer on the map. However, our shield didn't die, so that means our shield will remain here. And that is quite bad for our opponent. Let's just upgrade or unlock a few units. Let's unlock the Stormcaller, excuse me, which is a heavy rocket launcher. And in the next round, we can actually deploy this for 200 supplies. I'm just going to end the round. This will probably be the end of this game, I think. That was a giant melee mech, which is the worm, which also has a shield, so this is actually going to be interesting. As you can see, the Mustangs are only dealing damage to the shields. However, the crawlers, which were able to get inside the shields, dealt some damage to the giant worm. And now that the shield is up, the Mustangs can actually deal damage to the sandworm giant melee mech. And now there is paralyzed, and so are all the other units. This will be an easy cleanup from this point on, although we have lost quite a few amount of units in the left hand side, so that means we're going to deal less damage to our opponent than in the previous rounds. So it's not actually going to be the end of the game. Nope. Okay, so 600 HP left. Let's see. Okay, good selection of units once again. Let's take a look at some aerial units. For example, the Wasps. Immediately obtain 2 squads of rank 2 Wasps for 50 supply. Hell yeah. Let's take it. And by the way, the Wasps have an upgrade. Let me just find it. Yes, Jump Drive. Increases Wasps' movement speed by 5 and allows Wasps to be freely repositioned during the deployment phase of every round. So this makes the Wasps a very interesting unit because they're essentially taken out from the base game flow in the sense that they can be redeployed provided you pick up this unit upgrade. We're going to be looking at these unit upgrades in the subsequent little games that we're going to be playing. So for example, for the time being, I'm not going to focus on these upgrades, but just to let you know, each unit type, I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, has a set of unique upgrades that you can pick up. So for example, this one increases the range by 40 for 300 supplies. Let's just pick that up. And that means a little icon appeared of the upgrade, and that means each Mustang, so this doesn't have to be applied per squad, this just has to be applied per unit type, will now have an increased range, which is fantastic. Okay, the Wasps are kind of fast moving, so I'm just gonna put them over here, and let them just fly in as fast as possible. I'm going to recruit a few of these Stormcallers since I picked them up, just to show you guys. These are rocket launchers, can deal damage from afar. Okay, and at this point I can also pick up not the immediate resupply, but the mass recruitment, which will allow me to pick up one more squad this round. And I will also pick up the elite recruitment, which will increase the rank of units that can be purchased by 1. So just keep an eye out on the prices of these units. So it's 200, 100, 200, 200, and 100. But if I click this, It's now going to be 300, 150, 300, 300, and 150, because at this point I can recruit level 2 storm crawlers. I'm not sure why I'm calling crawlers, but maybe because these are crawlers. And now these are level 2s compared to the level 1s that I picked up before I picked up this temporary upgrade. Okay, nice. And maybe we can do a little bit of promotion, but I can no longer promote this. I cannot promote this time around because I don't have enough supply. Okay, let's just see what happens. Another sandworm mech is coming out from our opponent, and our shield over here is still up, which is kind of crazy. Now with the Stormcallers barraging our opponent. I see a barrage coming in soon. There you go. Our Wasps are going in as well. Our opponent actually picked up a lot of aerial units, which is going to be good for them in the left-hand flank, because it's only the Mustangs that can deal air damage. These can only attack ground. So that means if these Phoenix were to fly on top of them, then that would be an easy cleanup. But at that time, unfortunately for him, we have already circled back with our other units from the right hand side, and this will definitely finish them off. Maybe they will get a few hits on the command post, but it doesn't matter. Okay, and now this will probably go into negatives. Yeah, negative 300. And that's it for opponent, and that is one game of Mechabellum. Now, as I said, we're playing multiple games. So I'm just going to take a short break and then edit it onto this video, and we're going to be playing against the medium AI, the hard AI, and the very hard AI. Alright, so the next AI difficulty is normal. Let's jump into a game of normal. And this time around, I'm going to be focusing on some newer concepts, but also I'm going to be commentating on things that we have already covered in this video. So once again, commander selection, initial HP is relative to the base HP, so this one is kind of small, but they obtain 200 supplies in the first round, and at this point you should know what a supply is. That is essentially our currency. So we start with 200 more currency in the start of the game, which is fantastic. Grants 100 additional supply per round, but decreases the attack of all units by 11% and HP by 11%. So this is kind of an interesting one. Whether you want 100 extra supply, but essentially all of your units are subpar compared to the base version of them, essentially, which don't have their decreased attacks and decreased HPs, and so on and so forth. Let's go with the first one again, because this is kind of interesting to have 200 supply in the first round. Although we have 500 less HP because of that, or commander HP because of that. Okay, so new unit types for us. Fang, which is an light all-purpose bot, and also we have the Tarantula, which is a heavy mech. Okay, interesting. So because these are heavy mechs, I'm going to put them in the front line. Let's see if that works. Once again, round number 1, we can see what they have, but we don't see what formation they have set up for the first round. So it's kind of a black box, essentially. Okay, let's move this a tile forward. Now, just a reminder, if you're in a situation like this, you have everything set up, but you accidentally have any unit selected, which is indicated by this little animation they have, and then you accidentally left-click somewhere else, so for example over here, then that will start moving your unit. And if you don't want that to happen, then just simply right-click, and that will deselect everything. Okay? Now, how do we use our 400 supplies? You know what, let's go with 2 more Tarantulas. And the reason being is they have kind of these larger units. So for example, high-speed anti-unit bot, the steel balls, and also the Arclight, which is a medium anti-swarm bot. This is the swarm that I mentioned in the end of the previous game we had, which are these very small units like the crawlers. But since we don't have any, well, kind of have the light all-purpose bot of Fangs. But my theory is, if we put more Tarantulas, then these will hopefully take them out before they can do a lot of damage to our smaller units. Okay, I'm going to speed this up just a little bit, so I will just go ahead and deploy our units and see what happens. And then in this game against the medium AI, I want to go more into unit upgrades and also the flanks, which are going to be these 2 areas next to their half of the map, which is an interesting addition. Okay, so what's going on? I think we're winning the right flank. It seems like we're gonna be winning the left flank as well, although I don't want to jinx it. No, we actually lost the right flank. Okay, interesting. And now both flanks are of a different player, so this is interesting. They're gonna be moving towards our research center to get the paralysation going, and our units are going for their research center, which will get paralysation going for us. Okay, very interesting. You can also speed this up at the 85-second mark, so just click this button up here and this will speed up the game. This might actually be the first example where the timer runs out and both players have units alive, although that might not be the case if we can reach them in time. And we actually, nope, timer actually ran out. Okay, perfect. So this is like a nice example that both of us have actually lost health, because both of us had units on the field when the timer ran out, and thus each of our units have damaged ourselves or the other player. Okay, next set of reinforcements. So this is a deployment module. Units equipped by this item can move freely during the deployment phase of every round. This is kind of how the Wasp has a default upgrade that you can pick up. This can be attached to any unit and that can be freely deployed. So very interesting options that this grants you. Or mobile beacon, designate the selected unit's movement path. This is the only way you can actually establish kind of control over your units as to where they move, instead of having them, auto attack the closest thing. So very interesting, both of these. I'm going to go with the deployment module just to demonstrate, and let's say what they want to redeploy. Maybe this tarantula every single time, and as you can see, this became green as opposed to every single other unit, because this can be redeployed this time around. Maybe let's try to win the right flank. Okay, now why did we lose is the question that you're going to be asking yourselves a lot, and so am I, because I'm not by all means an expert in this game. I only have 10 hours, but I think I have a general understanding to make this beginner's guide. And essentially, we got a little bit swarmed by these crawlers that they just randomly busted out in the beginning of the previous round. So this time around, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and unlock a unit that will hopefully allow us to take care of those swarms. For example, we could grab arc lights of our own, which are anti-swarm bots, or we can grab hounds, which are light anti-swarm mechs. I mean, I think a few arc lights would be nice, so I unlocked it for, I believe it was 0, but in order to deploy it, we need to spend 100, and this time I'm going to grab 2 of them. Hopefully that will be enough to make a change. Put this behind our tarantulas, and I have 200 supplies left, so I'm going to click the research center. I'm going to grab the attack enhancements and the defense enhancements. Okay, let's end the deployment, see what happens. And also let's see what they actually put on the field. Hard to tell. Okay, so their crawlers are coming in against our arc light, which is the anti-swarm mechs, so perfect, that worked out perfectly. Now the steel balls are coming for our tarantulas, which are very tanky, so this is also very nice. Only problem is our arc light in this case wasn't actually attacking the swarm units that they had, the crawlers. Instead it's attacking the arc lights, which is not really optimal at any point. And we're losing the left flank because of the steel balls, so we have to be mindful of that in the next round. Let's speed this up. Once again, the situation is kind of similar. Now they picked up an upgrade for the steel ball, which is this green line. Chains adjacent steel balls together, increasing HP by 120%. And the second half of that upgrade is that they receive damage equally. So every single part of that 4 steel ball chain essentially receives damage equally, so you won't be able to individually take one out. You have to take out the entire group at once. So very interesting upgrade that. Okay. You can also hide the reinforcement panel, which will allow you to take a peek at what's going on and then go back to selecting your reinforcements. Now, if you take a look, this is a ground only unit, the steel ball. This is also a ground only unit. Crawlers are also ground only, and that's the only kind of units they have. So this time around, I'm thinking grabbing the 2 squads of Phoenix, which is an aerial unit, is actually going to be a good idea, because this will allow me to actually take out those units regardless of how much damage they do to our ground units, because these are aerial, so they won't be able to attack them. Okay, We also need to be mindful that they can upgrade the arc lights because we have the little arrow poking over there and the steel ball. Now the steel ball caused a lot of damage in the left hand side flank. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab 2 more of this Phoenix group, and hopefully they won't deploy any kind of anti-air this time around. Okay, so I'm just going to put this down. And what should I do with the remaining 200 supplies? Well, I could pick this up, which will allow me to recruit 1 more set of units, or I can just grab a general upgrade for this round only. Good, interesting choice. Or I can just fortify both of our core buildings, which I'm actually going to do. I'm going to click this. This will fortify the command center. Click the research center and fortify this for 100 as well. So this has increased HP now and also decreased the paralysation from 9 seconds to 7 seconds for our units. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so they went with the sandworm, which is also one of the reinforcements that we could have also picked up. Good news is the sandworm is also a ground-only mech. So actually looking at the unit composition, they still don't have anti-air. So that means regardless of what happens, we are going to be winning this round, or in the worst case scenario, we're going to be dealing damage to them as well as they're going to be dealing damage to us if the timer runs out. But as you can see, they can't really do anything. The best their units can do at this point is simply go for the core buildings, and that even didn't work. So we have essentially countered their very heavy ground-only army by having aerial units. Fantastic. Okay, another set of upgrades. Oh, this is nice. Hacker unit. We haven't seen this before. That basically is the Wololo units of Mechabellum. It allows you to turn a unit onto your side. Depending on how big that unit is the speed at which this hacking, as it's called, will take place. We can check this out, or we can check out the orbital bombardment. Both of them are very cool. That's why I want to do multiple rounds to show most of these things for you guys. So we can unlock level 3s, but just to be able, well, to unlock, we need to spend 100 supplies and then 400 to recruit a level 3 hacker. Let's just take a look at this guy. I kind of want to place it over here so that if it gets in range of the giant sandworm, then it will simply start hacking it and hopefully turn it to our side. Okay, now since our air-only strategy actually worked out pretty fine, I think I'm going to go with another group of Phoenix. Although at this point, the other player will probably catch on to our strategy of going for aerial units, so they would probably deploy something that can deal with air units, but let's hope that's not the case for the medium AI. And let's go with ending the deployment. Okay, so they went with the orbital bombardment, which is a bunch of like random artillery rounds. This is one of the RNG aspects of this game, is that if it doesn't hit anything, it can hit aerial units, by the way, which is interesting, but if it doesn't hit anything, then it's awkward. Okay, now the hacker bot is actually starting to hack. As you can see, if that were to go up, then it would have turned it to our side. I think we actually got one of the steel balls, although I'm not entirely sure that that's the case. I'm not sure if we actually managed to take control over anything. However, no, they actually now have anti-air units in the form of Mustangs, so we will actually lose this round because they will easily take out our Phoenixes. Question is how much damage we can deal until that happens, and not much. Okay, so we have lost that, and now they can actually deal a ton of damage to our commander. As you can see, the larger units have dealt 100 each, so we are actually losing hit points kind of crazily. Okay, but I still feel like our air strategy is working, so I'm actually gonna go with the immediately be able to recruit level 3 wasps, which are also range aerial units. I will also upgrade our Phoenix and go with the wasps, which only cost 50 to unlock. And actually we can recruit 2 of them with our 900 supply. Okay, now the question is, how should we place this? And at this point, let's just talk about the flanks. Okay, so the flank is the area next to your opponent's side of the map, where you can put units and they will slowly appear for the first time. So I actually can put any kind of unit over here, but they will need to warp in essentially. Now, the first time that happens, it's going to be extremely slow. So if they were to have units over here that can immediately attack these guys, then these would probably be dead before they are even able to appear. But in the subsequent rounds, they will appear almost immediately. So for this first time around, you're going to see that they actually take a lot of time to appear. But in the subsequent rounds, this might pay off. And if not, then we're just going to grab the upgrade to actually allow them to be redeployed. Okay, 100 supplies left. We could promote these fangs. Let's promote that. And actually, let's drop a... What should we drop? Let's drop a sentinel. Or sentry missile, sorry. Yeah, let's see what this does. Okay, so as you can see, the units in the flanks are very slowly warping in, extremely slowly. So you can imagine if they had like a couple of Mustangs over here, because these can be shot while they're warping in, they're not invulnerable until that happens. But the good news is you can actually flank their core buildings. So now they're paralyzed for 9 seconds for a lot, and now they're going to be paralyzed again because we took out the other core building. As you can see, that is a huge change in how the combat goes. I mean, look at the amount of damage we're dealing. They're down to 2,000. We lost the previous round, and the only thing that has changed is we have deployed these 2 groups of wasps. So crazy. Okay, now we have a few offensive abilities over here, or we can improve the Mustangs. Like I said, I don't really want to go into all of these because there's an enormous amount of reinforcements that you can get. Just play the game and you will be able to see all these different variations. Let's grab Lightning Storm. Just have something epic to show off. I'm immediately gonna put this over here. Let that cast. And actually this aerial strategy still works pretty fine. But I said we're gonna go into unit upgrades, so let's just do just that. So once again, if you click on any unit type, you will see there are 4 upgrades that you can take. Now most of these, as I found, is it's kind of a how should I say? So you have some benefits, but you also have some penalties for it. Now in the Phoenix, it's not really the case. But for example, this is attacking. That's actually good. I'm not seeing what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so some of these upgrades actually just bear with me here for a second. Anyways, okay, whatever. So what I wanted to say is that some of these upgrades might say something like it reduces the attack, or it increases the attack but reduces the HP, for example. In this case, like for example, increases the range of a Phoenix by 40. That is just, it's gonna happen. Or decreases attack interval by 50% and the range by 25 meters. Okay, so this is actually one of those upgrades that I mentioned. Is decreasing the attack interval is good because that means it's going to be shooting faster. However, the range is going to be decreased by 25 meters. So the question is, do you want to grab that? Is range important, or having to shoot faster is important? So there's a trade-off essentially. But the cockpit of a destroyed Phoenix will follow behind the nearest Phoenix of our forces and will be fully restored in 12 seconds. This effect can only be triggered 1 time per battle. Let's check this out to see if we can actually see that. It's a very interesting set of upgrades. And once again, upgrades you get for a unit type will be applied for every single squad of that unit type. So because I picked these 2 upgrades up, this applies for every single Phoenix squad we have. So very nice. Okay, let's see what happens. And now the flanked units, or the units in the flanks, will actually be deployed instantaneously, as you can see. It was only the first round where they took some time to actually get onto the field. This time around, they're immediately going to be on the field. Okay, now our left-hand group of wasps are actually getting taken out, but we might actually be able to take out all the Mustangs. Yep. Okay, so we can maybe get this paralysation going by destroying the research center, although it doesn't look like we actually need to do that because we're dealing a ton of damage. Okay, perfect. And we managed to convert the sandworm, which is even nice, with our hacker unit. Okay, and we won. Okay, sorry, I wasn't even paying attention. Okay, so a couple of takeaways from this game, or this round, is upgrades for unit type applies for every single unit, but modules that you place on units, which we have seen in the previous game, that you get through reinforcements, are only going to be applied to that one particular unit that you have attached it on. Okay, and the flanks that you have. I'm not sure if I can actually see. Yeah, view battlefield. Perfect. This is exactly what I needed. These flank areas of all the maps, essentially allow you to flank your opponents. However, the trade-off is that the first time you put units onto that position, it will take a very long time for them to actually warp in. But then in subsequent rounds, they will be spawned instantaneously. This is a kind of a balance, so that it doesn't, you cannot just put a bunch of units and have them appear immediately next to your opponent, because that would be very difficult to deal with. But in the next round, you can actually recover and react to your opponent flanking you from these positions. Okay, so next AI is going to be hard, and we're going to be taking a look at something. All right, next AI is the hard AI. Let's see what we can do. And this time around, I want to focus more on countering and explaining countering, or showing you guys how to counter certain units. Let's go with our commander selection first. Let's see, we had the quick supply previous, and I think we had the fortified specialist before that. Oh, no, that guy had 5,000 something HP. Okay, let's go with the aerial specialist. Aerial units no longer consume supplies when being unlocked. Increases their attack by 13% and HP by 13%. Very interesting. Let's go with this one. Okay. We also get a new set of units, which are the marksmen, long-range anti-unit bots. So these are fantastic against large units, which they don't have any. So we are starting out in a bit of a disadvantage. We can put them further down the line because, like I said, they're going to have enormous range and damage. Okay. Now the question is, what can we do against this situation? So hounds are essentially light anti-swarm mech, as we have briefly touched previously. So that means any kind of swarm units, they will just demolish. And steel balls are high-speed anti-unit bots, which are very good against single targets. So essentially they're in a very good position right now, except for anti-air. Now, because we don't actually need supply to unlock aerial units, what I'm thinking is, we can either go with the Phoenix, or we can go with the Wasp. And ultimately this time around, it wouldn't really matter. I'm just going to go with the Phoenix and get some aerial units onto the field, because as you can see, once again, clicking on their card, we can see that this is ground only, and this is also ground only. Now, of course, it can easily happen that the first time around they will actually deploy units that can, for example, Mustangs, that can attack aerial units. But if that's not the case, then we're going to be in a very good position. Otherwise, we'll easily lose this. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's also see what they have deployed. They have deployed crawlers, which are light melee robots. These are essentially like these swarm units, but they haven't deployed anything that can attack air. So actually, we have won this round regardless of how many units we're actually going to lose. Okay, so the marksmen are dealing some form of damage, except that there's like a ton of units over there. And when they're focus firing on crawlers, for example, then that is just horrible, all things considered, because these are like, it's a lot of units. And yes, they will be taken out in one shot, but by the time they actually reload, quote unquote, they're going to be destroyed very easily. However, they cannot attack our Phoenix, so we can just speed this up. Yes, our Phoenix is going to be paralyzed for 9 more seconds, but as you can see, ground-only units can't do anything at this point, so we're just going to sit here and wait for the end of the round, and that's it. So there's going to be 100 each, damage dealt to the enemy commander, and that plan worked out pretty fine. Once again, I'm going to hide this panel, just to see what's going on. So the aerial unit thing worked out pretty fine. But at this point, they're probably going to deploy something against our air units. And there's a very good question as to what are we going to do about that. Well, we can go with a missile strike to maybe soften off their defenses over here. The other ones, I'm not really sure if they would be beneficial for us at this point. So we could grab the missile strike for free, or we can actually skip getting a reinforcement in general and getting an extra 50 supply from that. But I think I'm going to go with the missile strike this time around, because it's also a cooldown kind of ability, so that means 2 rounds later we can use it again. And once again, this is also one of those abilities that takes some time to calm down. I'm not sure how much it takes, so I'm just going to put it over here and hope for the best. And by the way, if you have placed an ability like this and you're not happy with where you have placed it, you can just simply hit cancel over here, and you can just replace it anywhere you like. I'm going to place it over here because I'm actually happy with its position. I'm just not sure if that's actually going to do much. Okay, now we have a few options. with our remaining 400 supplies. We can deploy more Phoenix and hope for the best, or we can just deploy one set of Phoenix and go with these two upgrades from our research center, which is increasing the attack of our units and the HP of our units, just so we get that out of the way, essentially. I'm gonna go with this, and once again hope for the best. Let's go. And they were kind of in range, but not entirely in range, so that could have been better, definitely. And now they have deployed Fangs, which are light all-purpose bots, meaning they deal aerial and ground damage as well. So that means that eventually they'll be able to shoot against our Phoenix. Now when that will happen is a good question. Okay, they're closing in on our right-hand side flank, which has our Phoenix. Okay, and they're slowly going to start attacking our Phoenix. But we actually have some ground units still, so we have won the round. Perfect. Okay. I can already see we're going to have a few promotions for our Phoenix. Now this time around our reinforcements consist of units. We could get the Phantom Ray, which is also an aerial unit. Medium-sized aircraft with high HP that excels at striding enemies at close range with high damage missiles. And some pretty good upgrades, by the way. Or we can grab the Typhoons, which are a heavy mech with 2 Gatling guns effective against light ground and aerial units. This would be an interesting one. Plus they're level 2 or rank 2. I'm actually going to grab this because my plan for these guys is they will actually destroy the crawlers in advance and also the Fangs later on. But for the remainder of our supply, for example, we're going to promote this group of Phoenix, squad of Phoenix. Once again, promoting only is effective for that squad. So our other squad of Phoenix is not promoted, still just level 1. And I think I'm going to grab 2 more sets of Phoenix. Just box our units in. Once again, hitting that T on the keyboard to change from a horizontal to a vertical fashion. And let's go with this. Okay, let's see. Now they're still kind of building up on the right-hand side. There's something to keep in mind in the future. Now they actually deployed a Scorpion, heavy anti-swarm robot, but it's unfortunately for him, it's also just ground only, although they have a flank in the back of that, which actually deals aerial damage, so they'll probably take out these Phoenix. Okay, now in the right-hand side, we're doing pretty good. And this is once again a situation, just to go over the place, that the marksman deals a ton of damage, but only to 1 unit. So they're slowly chipping away at these Fangs, but they're getting closer and closer, and there's not much a single marksman can do. Although this time around they're paralyzed for that 9 seconds. That means they're hardly doing any damage. So actually this marksman might even survive because of that. Plus we have the other paralyzation going on by destroying the research center. And actually, yes, the marksman survived. But as you were able to see, it's not really a good engagement for marksman type of units. Okay. Airdropping. I don't think we have seen airdropping before, so I'm just going to go with this, although I would love to go with the advanced offensive tactics, because that is fantastic. But I just want to show you guys what airdropping means. So essentially, airdropping is think of it as deploying units, but you can deploy them behind the enemy lines as well. So I'm going to click this because this is an activatable ability. And as you can see, I can deploy it anywhere except for the general vicinity of the 2 core buildings of our opponent. So I can actually deploy them maybe over here in the middle or here in the flank. Not directly on the flank, although I could do that as well, but a little bit inside their general position. And what will happen is that in the start of the round, this airdrop 1 Rhino, so 1 group of Rhino, 1 squad of Rhino will be dropped to this position, and hopefully, at least that's the theory, is that they're going to go for the core building and disable it very quickly. But you can, later on, you get access to airdropping, quote unquote, bunch of other units, like for example, actual aircraft carriers, for example, this unit, the Overlord. Fantastic thing to airdrop right behind the enemy lines. I'm actually thinking about picking up some other units just so I can show you guys. Because, once again, we have the aerial specialist commander, so that means we don't actually need supplies to unlock units. We just need supplies to actually deploy them. So I'm going to grab the Raiden, which is a very nice aircraft, and deploy one squad of that just to show you guys. Okay, and let's promote this Phoenix. I don't think I'm going to promote this Marksman, honestly, because we're not getting too much value out of them. Instead, I'm going to go with some more upgrades for the Phoenix. So this is the cockpit destroyed. Decreases the attack interval and range. Not sure if currently we're using the range that much. Or we can just go with the energy shield that absorbs damage equal to the unit's HP and can block at least one instance of damage. So that means that the first attack that goes its way will be blocked completely. So for example, if that's a Sentry missile, that's perfect. If it's a gunshot from a Fang, then that's less good. Let's go with the energy shields. Okay, and we're left with 50 supplies. I mean, we can just put this down for some immediate damage. And once again, the Sentry missile will immediately attack if something is in range, and in this case a lot of things is in range. I'm guessing it's going to attack the closest one, so these fire badgers. Well, let's see. Yes. Almost dead. Or actually dead. Okay. So our Rhino airdropping didn't really work. We have delayed them a little bit in moving forward. Now the Raiden is a fantastic aircraft to actually deal a ton of damage. It's super slow, so it's kind of like the Phoenix. It's slow to deal damage, but it does like 3 attacks at the same time. So this is very handy when you're coming up against like medium units, you know, that come in like groups of 4 or 5, and you can immediately hit 3 of them with just one Raiden shot. And it also deals 350 damage to the enemy commander, which is also fantastic. Okay. Ooh, interesting. Interesting set of options. Once again, ton of units. Rank 4 Void Eyes. Light high damage unit. Now this is actually would be very nice to pick up, and I just want to see if there's something I haven't shown you guys before. But I think we've seen this. Well, we've seen the Saber-Tooth on the other side. So let's go with the Void Eyes. This is one of the new units that have been released with 1.5.0. Okay. Let's upgrade the Phoenix. Now we can grab the second tier of upgrades, which will increase the attack volumes by 24%, costs 300. And then the final upgrade for the defense, also 300. This is going to be more of an upgrade round, I think. I'm going to promote our Phoenix, and we have 200 supplies left. You know what? Let's promote some of this Marksman, and perfect. We actually used up all of our supply. And because our missile strike ability that we unlocked 2 rounds ago has a cooldown of 2 rounds, we can use it again. Now, it took a couple of seconds for it to do something. I want to hit this bot. I think if I put it over here, because it's relatively slow, I think if I put it over here, then we're going to be good in trying to hit that. And the Rhino, because the Rhino was only effect for the... Well, that didn't do shit. I apologize. The Rhino that was in effect for airdropping has been destroyed, and now it's no longer there, so it's not going to be airdropped there all the time. It's just going to be airdropped there for that one round. Okay, now there's some shenanigans going on the right-hand side flank over here. They also have a Raiden, plus they have a melting point, which is a giant anti-unit bot. Hits ground and air, and deals a ton of damage, as you can see. Just melting through everything. Plus they're hitting our core buildings, so we're actually in a disadvantage right now. Okay, now they're also paralyzed. We can capitalize on that somewhat. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out, although I think we have won this, yep. Okay, actually didn't take any damage this time around. But this was a few aerial vehicles, very nice. Happy that we actually got the choice to pick that commander. Hopefully in the last little mini episode here, when we play against the very hard AI, we will also have some new interesting commanders to check out. Alright, so welcome to the final part of this Mechabellum Beginner's Guide. We're going to be going up against the insane AI, and hopefully we're going to get a commander that has something new for me to show you guys. But so far, I think hopefully I have shown you guys most of this game that is enough for you to get started playing this. And there's, like I said, there's a ton of things to actually figure out for yourself, ton of units that we haven't seen just yet, reinforcements, upgrades of each units, upgrades that you can grab from the command center or the research center. So there's like a ton of options, which is actually fantastic that there's so many options to go with in this game. That's what I absolutely love about it. Okay, what should we start out with? Speed Specialist. Interesting. We haven't seen that before. Increases the movement speed of your units. And by the way, if you haven't read it or forgot what you have read, you can just hover over this icon, which will show you what kind of specialist you have. Increases the movement speed of all units by 3. Okay, so I'm guessing we should be focusing on swarming our opponent with smaller units like the crawlers. At least judging from the movement speed, it's probably going to be a good option for us. Let's see what our opponent has. They have Sledgehammer, which are heavy tanks, and Marksmen, which are actually horrible against crawlers, as we have seen. So this is a good thing to actually pick up more crawlers. Good opportunity to pick up more crawlers. I'm going to grab 2 more squads of crawlers and see if we can swarm our opponent very quickly with that movement speed. Okay, let's go ahead. So like I said, I cannot emphasize that how many options you have in Mechabellum because of all these upgrade paths that you can take, the different commanders, the specializations or the specializations, the reinforcements, all of that is just so amazing that you have so many options. Now this is when the swarming actually goes right. It's you just swarm all your opponents, and these high damage units like the Sledgehammers and Marksmen cannot do anything against them because you just have so many units coming at them. Of course, they do a very small amount of damage to the opponent's commander. As you can see, crawlers only dealt 4, so that's not too much. But hopefully later on we'll have more and more crawlers still available. Immediately be able to recruit level 3 Fangs is actually fantastic. Fangs are once again those all-purpose light units. Or we can grab heavy armor, which can be applied to 1 unit. Now this is an instance that I'm just going to grab this. So we can apply this to 1 unit, and it will be only applied to that squad of unit, not all the squads of that unit type. And this will also not have any kind of cooldown after a certain amount of rounds. So you just equip this, and that's it for this reinforcement. I don't know if I want to do that just yet. I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to promote the crawlers because I think this is what we're going to be focusing on, is a heavy crawler build. Plus, later on, we might need some anti-air because right now we're in a situation where we don't have any anti-air. We only have ground units. Or units that can only attack ground units. You know what? I'm actually going to go with these first 2 upgrades and go with another group of crawlers. And hopefully still be in a good position. Now this tarantula will take some time to break through, but I think that's not going to be a problem, actually. It is going to take out our steel balls, but by the time they do, our crawlers are actually going to get close and start dealing a ton of damage. Now crawlers have very nice upgrades, which I want to show you guys, I think in the next round, or after this one, we'll see. Okay, let's just swarm these. Well, this is essentially the gameplay, right? Is you deploy units with the intent that they're gonna be there for the entirety of the game. So, oops, I don't want to chat. So just keep that in mind. That is the most important aspect of Mechabellum, is that they're gonna be there for the entirety of the game. Very important to keep in mind. And this might not seem like I'm very bad at communicating these things, that how good they are, but this adds such a interesting aspect to the entire game. Is you not only think about how to counter what they have on the map right now, but also maybe think about how to counter how they would counter what you have on the map right now, and go for that, and not necessarily just always reacting to what they're doing. Maybe go ahead and react to what they would be reacting to your stuff. And this can get out of hand real quickly, but it's also a fantastic element of Mechabellum. Once, of course, you have learned most of the units and upgrades and all that. So before that, it's very difficult. I've struggled for several hours just to beat the easy AI, even because I was just throwing random units that were absolutely not counters to the enemy's units. So just keep that in mind. It might take some time to actually get used to this, but once you stayed in it, essentially, and you have a general understanding of these game mechanics and units, you'll have a ton of fun with this game. Now this replicate is a fantastic upgrade for the crawlers. Uses destroyed enemies to create more crawlers. So that's like, wow. Increases the unit's movement speed by 5, so you can further increase the unit's movement speed, which can be amazing because that means we can get into their faces a lot easier. Increases movement speed by 3, tunnels underground when there are no enemies within 50 meters, and nullify 55% of damage received, and emerge from beneath the ground and attack upon arriving near the enemy. Okay, destroy crawlers leave acid liquid on the ground in a radius of 9 meters, so on and so forth. This is fantastic if you can actually get into their face, be destroyed, and then leave this acid pool. I'm gonna go with replicate, just to show you guys, hopefully you can see. What you will see is basically a bunch of like level 1 small crawlers appear where enemies have been destroyed. So fantastic. Let's grab even more crawlers. At this point, the AI should probably start pumping out like anti-swarm units, like hounds, or just to give you guys the arc light is a good one. Even like these flamethrower units, or giant, or just melee units like the Rhino heavy melee bots. I'm not seeing the flamethrower unit that I want to talk about, but maybe there's the Vulcan giant anti-swarm bots are also fantastic. So just keep that in mind. You have a lot of options for countering as well, not just 1 or 2 units. I just put down the Sentry missile, and they also picked up the Wraith. Okay, that's successful. Okay, they actually managed to take out all of our crawlers. Yeah, you cannot exploit this strategy for a very long time, not even against the AI. Just keep that in mind. Although with the paralysation, we might be able to get into their face and spawn a lot of crawlers, which will in turn spawn even more crawlers and overwhelm them. Maybe. Let's see what we can do. They're doing a lot of AoE, so I'm not too confident in this build, and we will definitely need to switch up this build. I mean, it's very rare that you can get away with actually only building one type of unit, right? Okay, so yeah, that was bound to happen, that only building crawlers will not actually work out. Okay, so how should we switch this up? Well, first of all, I'm gonna hide the panel just to see what's up. So they have made a lot of improvements in the left flank, going with tarantulas and the Wraith. We could go for intensive training, which allows us to promote essentially a unit, or at least have them enough experience to be promoted every single round, because it has a cooldown of 1 round. Instantly increases the XP of a designated squad to the maximum value. Just to show you, I think we've seen this before, but just in case. So you just hover over any unit. There's no specific indication of what it is you're targeting. It's just you're going to be targeting the thing that is closest to the icon. So, and then you just left click, and now these guys can be promoted, even though they didn't have enough experience before. Now they do. Okay, so how do we deal with these larger units? Well, this is ground only. Their marksmen are air and ground. We could go with some aerial units, maybe 2 more rates, or we can just unlock a few more, or a few different aerial units, or go with something big like the Overlord. I want to show you guys this one. I actually want to show you guys a lot more units. Or we can just unlock the Raiden, which you can immediately pick up, or risk it and go with this, the elite recruitment, which increases the rank of all the units that you can pick up this round. That means we can pick up level 2 crawlers right off the bat, and they will stay level 2. That's the cool part of it. And yeah, actually, let's try this. This might be stupid. I'm pretty sure this is stupid. Put this down, and also grab these upgrades that will allow them to move faster, so even faster than they moved before. And let's see what we can do with these. Plus we can reinforce the 2 core buildings like so. I think I'm gonna grab the heavy armor and put it on these steel balls, although probably could have waited for a larger unit with more HP. Let's see, so these are now extremely fast. Hopefully we can just get close enough to actually deal a ton of damage to replicate the crawlers that we already have, and also deal a lot of damage to these guys. Let's see. We're not dealing a whole lot of damage to the steel balls, that's the problem. Once again, they're chained together, so that means individual... Well, sorry, these aren't even steel balls, these are sledgehammers, but the chaining is the same effect, is that individually they don't take damage. Whatever damage you deal to the group will be equally split amongst members of the group. So as you can see, all of them are equally declining in damage, but none of them are actually being taken out individually. Okay. Okay, so yeah, this of course didn't work. It's okay. We're gonna be... At least we didn't lose all that much this time around. Yeah, let's go with some more heavier units. Mobilized battleship. Summon one Overlord, which is the big aircraft carrier that I wanted to show you guys, to attack your enemy. So this is like airdropping a Rhino. This can be put anywhere on the map that is not directly in the vicinity of the core buildings of our opponent. So let's just... I mean, if I put it over here, then the marksman will be triggered by it. So I'm thinking I'm going to put it over here and hopefully... Or maybe even here in the flank. Just so hopefully the fangs won't even be triggered by it and they can go ahead and take out the research center for that good paralysation. Let's upgrade the crawlers. I hit Control U to mass upgrade all of the units of that type. Or you can just hit U to upgrade one squad of units. And I think if we had like 2 more wraiths in the previous encounter, then we would have been in a good shape. So I'm going to grab 2 more wraiths. Maybe just split them up a little bit. And let's see what we can do with this configuration. Okay, so they picked up an ability that will completely wipe out that area. Yep, that's it for our crawlers. GG. Okay, and they picked up the Overlord. So they also went with the Summon Overlord, I guess. So, similarly to us. Okay. Let's see what happened. Hopefully our race can take out their Overlord, especially now that they are paralyzed. Okay, gonna be interesting because they're getting close to our core building, so we will be paralyzed very soon. These are the replicant crawlers, small ones, or the level 1 ones. Okay, now these linked or chained sledgehammers have posed a lot of problems in the previous round. But this time around, okay. They might get the core building, but I don't think that's gonna matter all that much. Although for that 9 seconds, or 7 seconds actually, because the upgraded core building will only allow us to be paralyzed for 7 seconds. But yeah, we haven't lost any of those, and because these are like really big units, you can see 300, 300, 300, and 100. Damage dealt, perfect. Okay, do some Vulcans. They don't really have swarm units, so getting the Vulcans actually doesn't matter all that much. Now they will be able to upgrade all of these units, so that's something to keep in mind. But the general direction of our strategy, I think, is pretty good. Oh, sorry, I cannot do that. Yeah, you cannot do anything until you have picked your reinforcements, so you cannot even upgrade or anything along those lines. What should we pick up? I mean, we could still go with the aerial route. 2 rank 2 Phoenixes. Or Phoenix, not sure if that has a plural or not. Let's go with this. Upgrade all the crawlers because they're still the main driving force of our army. And let's see if we can grab an upgrade for these guys. And it even reduces the attack interval. Let's go with this. So these will be extremely fast from this point on. And this time around I actually want to go with these upgrades, which are the final 2 enhancements. And also let's fortify this building, the command center, for the second time. So now it's even more fortified, and we are down to 5 seconds of being paralyzed. So it's even better. Okay, and that's it. Let's go. Because the left-hand side flank is always weaker, I feel like. That's why I decided to reinforce that. Now they have the Vulcan, which is the giant anti-swarm out that will absolutely demolish all of our crawlers. Okay, so our left flank is actually horrible. Now the question is, do we want to somehow turn around our left flank or focus on making our right flank even crazier? That's a good question. Okay, let's speed this up. Now the Wraith is level 3. But we actually managed to clean this up. Okay, good. So yeah, the good question is, should we go with trying to defend our left flank or just be like, screw it? We could go for redeployment actually. And be like, okay, if we cannot defend the left flank, then let's just redeploy one of our crawlers and start working our way up the right flank. This might be a good option. It might be a good way to do things. Let's unlock something big. Unlock a big unit. I've seen the sandworm. I've seen the melting point for a little bit. Okay, the melting point might be nice. We haven't seen the mobile factory, the war factory, Titan mobile factory. Let's pick this up for no reason. So that's a very big unit, and it also has a ton of upgrades, as you can see. I'm just gonna hover over it. You can pause the video if you wanna see, but it can produce one phoenix to join the battle every 13 seconds for 6 times. It can produce one steel ball to join the battle every 6.5 seconds for 11 times. So it's actually a mobile factory, very similar to Supreme Commander. If you played that game, you also had like factory units that can produce other units. Okay, and that's about it. You have 50 left, 50 supplies that is. You can just put down the Sentry missile. Hopefully that will deal a little bit of damage to something. And at this point our left flank is completely lost, so I'm not even gonna worry about that. They do have 2 overlords at this time around, and one of them is level 2. Okay, interesting. Okay, very interesting to see how this will work out. We got the paralysation going. 9 seconds because they haven't upgraded it. Okay. After that 9 seconds is over, I feel like we're still in the lead in terms of having aerial units. It's really this Wraith, but we also have a level 3 Wraith. And the marksman that really could deal some damage to us, but these ones won't be able to do anything because this is ground only, ground only, and ground only, and this might actually be enough to end the game at this point. We'll see. Although 1500 HP left, hard to tell if... No, this will... Or 300, 300, and 560 HP left. Okay, so just not enough. No worries. Advanced power system increases the movement speed of all units by 3. Perfect. Actually perfect for our cause, because that is exactly what we're going for with all these crawlers. Let's upgrade this guy. And by the way, just so I said you can press Control U to upgrade all of the units of a particular category or particular unit type. But if you only have one unit that can be upgraded, then Control U won't actually upgrade that one unit. You actually have to press U to upgrade that one unit, so that's something to keep in mind. So for example, here I have only one squad of crawlers that can be upgraded. If I press Control U, it's not actually going to upgrade this one squad. I have to press U to upgrade this one squad explicitly. That's something to keep in mind. Okay. Okay, now we have a few of these abilities cooled down. Move from the deployment phase. I mean, I think we can redeploy another squad of crawler just so we can build up our right-hand side flank. And I'm going to grab this temporary upgrade of recruiting elites, and I'm going to grab the other one, which will allow us to mass recruit, so recruit 1 more, which increases our recruitable squad to 3. I'm going to grab 3 more crawlers just to see if just to see if we can do something swarmy with these guys. Okay. And we could even upgrade the other research center. Allow the use of sticky oil bomb. Let's go with the sticky oil bomb. And where do we want a sticky oil bomb? Maybe like this. Yeah, let's see. Ooh, they have even more overlords now. Okay, so they're going the aerial route. So this oil can be ignited. And it has been ignited. So that means all the units that are inside that will actually start taking a ton of damage. It looks like a right-hand side is actually very strong. So we should be able to clean this up. Okay, and that should definitely be enough. Yep, minus 1700. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this little beginner's guide and gameplay showcase of Mechabellum. I would definitely recommend picking up this game because I had a ton of fun with it so far, and I still see a bunch of options that I can go with in the future. This is one of the longer beginner's guides that I've made. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.